Hello and welcome at the GCP-Mindset channel. We speak today about clinical research in South Europe, and I have with me Alfonso García.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk about my region.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And Alfonso will speak about Italy, Spain and Portugal. Alfonso, once again, thank you very much for being here. We know each other already for many years now. I know you are from Spain, but can you tell our subscribers and viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Well, thank you again for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. From me, there's not too much to say. I am interested in the research field since I can remember. So I decided to come to this field by studying psychology in Spain, in Madrid, in Universidad Complutense. And then I started working as a consultant for talent retraining and training activities. And then in 2009, with my sister, I came to the company, to Leon Research, a CRO company in Spain, where we started providing just services as to our clients only for CTA and monitoring activities. Now we are offering a full range, and we are trying to support the clients with, since the study design to the registration, dossier elaboration, and obtaining and putting their products in the market. And then we started already in Spain, and now we are also in Portugal, Italy, and Spain. So we are covering the south of Europe.
Congratulations, very impressive. Alfonso, you have the privilege to live in a beautiful country, in Spain, yeah? But maybe you can also tell our viewers a little bit more about these countries. Yeah? Most of the people know Portugal, Italy or Spain from holidays. They like the sun, the beaches, the food, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the health system and the people who are living there, the economics and so on.
Well, that's true. There are wonderful countries to live, but there are also wonderful countries for business. Each of them has their own peculiarities, and they have many things in common. As a country, we cover 118 million people, 60.5 million in Italy, 47 million in Spain, and around 10 million and a half also in Portugal. Them all are members of the European Union, you know. Nowadays it's a little bit more interesting to be part of it. And then we have, they are all members of the NATO, or the OECD, and of course the World Trade Organization. Italy is the 8th economical power in the world. Spain is the 13th, and Portugal the 46th. So they are all high-level countries. In terms of the Human Development Index from the United Nations Index, them all are in the high-level segment for human development. So these are countries well developed. And for example, in life expectancy, Spain has 83 years of expectancy, Italy is 82, and Portugal 81. So we are a great place for living. Then in relation with healthcare systems, in Spain, Portugal and Italy, in all three countries, these are quite good healthcare systems. Them all are public, they have public support and everything like that, so they are really good systems. Indeed, if you will look for this classification or rankings index, you will see that them all are between the 20 positions, them all. So it's a good place to live. I mean, you can visit us and review it.
Thank you. That's probably also the reason why so many Germans, after retirement, moving to Spain.
Probably.
So now I'm even more interested in your countries, Alfonso. Yeah? When you are saying the living style is there very nice, and you have only happy and healthy people living in these countries, I'm wondering if these places are good for clinical research, because you need patients to do clinical studies. Yeah, but maybe you can tell me a little bit more about the investigators, the study sites? Yeah? Do you have GPs involved? Do you have university clinics or private clinics involved in your studies?
Certainly, we have all kinds of investigators in almost every research field. Indeed, we have a database to provide to our sponsors with more than 2,000 investigators in all 3 countries. So yes, we have patients and we have enough sites. And then we also have research institutions in each country that you can find. For example, in Spain we have a National Center for Oncology Investigation. In Italy we have the Advanced Research Center. In Portugal we have the Institute for Molecular Medicine. So we have all kinds of investigators and sites. Just tell me which is your disease or your study that you need patients, and we will give you the more suitable investigators for your study.
More than 1,000 investigators, that's of course impressive. But what is in terms of qualification? Yeah? In Germany we have some really crazy requirements that investigators need first a basic course for more than 1 day, then we have refresher courses, we have special training courses for principal investigators, which is extremely crazy. After they have run 30s of studies, they still need to go to a principal investigator training. How do you handle it in your countries? Is it easier to become an investigator?
Definitely it's easier. There's not that kind of regulations, and the investigators, they only need to be investigators, and they need the GCP training required by the GCP's regulation. No, but you don't need to be, and investigators doesn't need anything special to be investigator. They only need to want to be, and then with that it's enough. It's true that some of them are taking part in several investigations at the same time, which make them more experienced and things like that. But they always need some support, and they have the hospitals and the sites, public or private, they all have their foundations where they provide them all this type of training and things like that. So they don't need anything special. It's true also that they need to comply with the GCPs, international GCPs, and we comply with them. But it's no specific regulation for GCP training for them.
Okay, let's talk about the therapeutic areas you can cover. Yeah, I mean, in some countries it's easier to find obese patients, in others you find more cancer patients. In other countries you can conduct very easily orphan disease studies. What's with Italy, Portugal, and Spain? What kind of studies can you conduct easily?
Well, easy in clinical research, there's nothing, you know it better than me. But it's true that we try to make it easier to get into some therapeutic areas. Actually, the most relevant investigations that are ongoing are oncology, dermatology, neurology, but that's because they are cardiology, but that's because they are the most relevant all over the world. But locally, you mentioned before that we are in the sunny south of Europe, so all sun-related activities such as skin cancer, dermatology, there are lots of investigations in that. And also to age-related, I told you previously that we have a high life expectancy. So all age-related activities such as ophthalmology or central nervous system, we also have lots of investigation on patients for that. And nowadays we are also taking part in too many advanced therapies investigations, because we also have rare diseases which are very local in this region. So, but again, we can do it in any therapeutic area.
That of course makes sense. When you have a lot of sun and older population, it makes sense that you go to these countries to recruit these patients for the clinical studies. Let's come to the regulatory part. Yeah, can you explain us a little bit about these countries in terms of getting an ethics approval and competent authority approval? How does it work?
Well, each of the three countries has their particular differences, but them all are actually completely adapted to the European regulation. In Spain, for example, we have a new regulation in which you only have to submit for the clinical trials with drugs. You only have to submit to one ethics committee and the competent authority centralized. So we have the approval from one ethics committee for the rest of the sites that may take part. In the best scenario, we can have the approval in 45 days. If we go to a worst scenario, you can have it in 70 days. So it's I think they are quite good timelines. That's for the medical investigation with drugs. If we go to medical investigation or clinical research with medical devices, we are waiting for the new regulation, but actually it's almost the same than for that. The only difference is with regulatory authorities that you have to submit it to them or not, depending on the type of study. And then in terms of the observational studies, or what we call post-authorization studies, we need the approval for both regulatory authorities and also for the ethics committee, but also we need the approval from some of the local regulatory authorities. So it's a little bit more complicated observational studies in Spain.
Alfonso, that's very interesting. Actually, post-market studies should be easier, less complicated compared to the studies you conduct to get a market approval. Yeah, and you say it's more complicated to get approval for these studies. Do you know the reason?
Yeah, but that's natural. I've been told by the regulatory authorities that's only because the post-marketing studies or the observational studies were done with an intention of commercial intention instead of science intention. So the regulatory authorities try to avoid that situation, and that's why they get it a little bit more complicated to have the observational studies than the other ones. But in any case, for Portugal, it's also the same. It's easier to conduct a study, interventional study more than observational ones. If you go to Portugal, the regulatory activity, you have to do the same approval from the Infarmed, or which is the regulatory authorities, and the Central Ethics Committee for the three type of studies: medical devices, drugs, or interventional post-authorization. And the average would be around 40 working days in this case. And if you go for observational studies, then it may take 90 days to obtain the approval, and then you need the approval of the regulatory authorities, the local ethics committee, the ethics committee. So it's also more complicated, and that's the reason why. And in Italy, the situation is, again, as in Spain and Portugal, it is already adapted to the European regulation, but you also need the approval for the IFA, which is the local authority, and this IFA needs to approve all the interventional studies together with the non-interventional one. The big difference is with the medical devices, where you need the approval depending on if it's CE marked or not. But it's also more complicated observationals than interventional ones.
Okay, very interesting. The countries are very similar, but the regulatory process is quite different, correct? Yeah.
A little bit.
The purpose of the European regulation is actually to harmonize the process and also to speed up the start-up process of clinical research. However, what's not possible to regulate and harmonize, at least it seems so, is the contract negotiation process. Yeah, and that's more or less for all sponsors a pain to get a contract signed as soon as possible. And in most of the countries, it's delaying the whole process. How is it in Spain, Italy, and Portugal? How can we help them?
That's true. We are in the same situation than you. The contract management is the biggest challenge that we have as CRO. In my countries, in Spain, Italy, and Portugal, there are some differences also. But most of the sites, in all public ones, has their own template, and this is the first thing that a sponsor should know, that they are not quite open to negotiate their templates. Although they are in both languages, they are not quite open to introduce any changes. Sometimes they accept an addendum or things like that, but it's not easy also to include any type of that information. So changes, adaptations, and things like that are not quite well accepted from the sites. It's also true that the sites want to do the study, so they have to also adapt a little bit to the sponsors. But it's not easy, maybe when they are, even less when they are public ones. With private hospitals, the issue is less than that. We have assigned internal resources just for contract negotiation, which is interesting because they know tricks, tips, and some things to improve. They know the negotiators, they know things that helps to improve the timelines. But it's true that it's complicated. And in terms of timelines, if you go to Spain, for example, you don't need to have the contract for submission. You only need the contract for start. But it's better if we start negotiating the contract when we do the submission at the beginning, so we have time to do that. In Italy, it's almost the same, but some sites they require to have the contract in place before the submission. And in Portugal, all sites, the regulation is mandatory to have the contract negotiated before the submission. Just for when they give you the approval, you just have to sign it and move forward. And the only thing that the ethics committees review is, of course, the budget, which is the most important part, because they want to be sure that the investigation is not being done just because of money. It's done because of some other reasons, no? So that's the. But indeed, it's the biggest challenge in our countries, and I guess all over the world.
Okay, Alfonso, let's speak about the real conduct of clinical studies. So let's imagine we have the approval, and I would also be interested how it looks like with inspections in your countries. Yeah? And don't speak about FDA inspections because they are all over the world the same, or EMA-triggered inspections. Let's talk about local inspections.
Well, in terms of inspections, local inspections are usually done regularly. I mean, it's decided depending on the size of the study, the number of sites. Of course, if there is any suspect of any misconduct from the site, but they're regularly done. Local inspections, we have had few inspections all over these 10 years, only 2 indeed in Spain, and no major findings or nothing in site inspections. But that's simply because we have had a few of them, I guess. Because I know that they are done several inspections, high level inspections, and they find things complicated. But normally we can solve them easily. So there's not too many complications with that. I mean, it's regular activity.
Yes, that's also what I have experienced. The risk of getting inspected in your countries is quite small compared to other countries. Let's change the topic slightly and let's speak about medical device studies. I know you are also conducting a lot of medical device studies, and you know that we will have the medical device regulations very soon. What do you think? What will change in your region after the MDR has been implemented?
That's true. Indeed, we have a huge experience in medical devices in all 3 countries because there are too many companies for medical devices in that region, and indeed because it's a good gateway for non-European Union companies to get into the European market and obtain the CE mark for the device and things like that. All the regulations are very similar to the drugs, and if I'm not wrong, the intention with the new regulation is to resemble it even more with the drugs. So we don't expect quite relevant changes in the regulation in our region. It's true that it will be adapted to improve, so we're willing to improve in the country. So that's always welcome, the new regulations. And the new regulation probably will fit to the actual practice. So there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, I completely agree. I see also a huge harmonization process between the medical device world and the drug world, and it makes our life easier, because it's always more or less the same. But in Germany, we have a huge medical device business here, of course. We hear a lot of complaints. Yeah? The industry sees the risk of getting less devices on the market, also the risk of losing employees, and it costs a lot of money. And on the other side, the regulation should also ensure that the post-market period is controlled better, the whole life cycle of a device actually. That means also that a lot of post-market studies need to be conducted. What do you see there? What kind of trends do you see in your regions?
Well, indeed, that will be the most relevant change actually for the medical device field. In our expectancy, actually in the countries there's no difference between post-marketing authorization with medical devices or with drugs. Post-marketing authorization are regularized by the same regulation. But in any case, some of the relevant activity that has to be done in terms of submissions to or approvals is the small difference. In Spain, you need the approval for any post-marketing authorization, as mentioned before, from the local authorities and also from the central authorities and also from the ethics committee. In Portugal, you only need the approval in case it is not interventional. If it's observational, you will need also the approval. And in Italy, it depends on the CE mark. If you have the CE mark, you only need to notify the regulatory bodies. And if you have no CE mark, then you need to obtain the approval from all of them. So again, it will not make us big challenges or big difference, but yes, we need to adapt to this new regulation. Yeah.
Okay, Alfonso, great. Let's imagine a sponsor wants to conduct a study in Europe, yeah, and sometimes they go a strategic way and say, we want to have countries in Eastern Europe, and Central Europe, and Southern Europe. Yeah. What would be your recommendation if you would be asked, yeah, we want to have one Mediterranean country involved in clinical studies? What would you recommend that's the best country to conduct your study?
Well, that's like a little bit tricky question because that's like who do you love more, mom or dad? No,
I like tricky questions.
I understand that. To be honest, it depends on the study, of course, the study and the indication, indeed. But if you need quick approval, I would say that Spain is the fastest one for approval and to start with the study. If you are talking about recruitment, Italy will definitely be one of the top, would be on the top of the list because Italy is always on the top 3 of the recruitment studies we are involved, always in the top 3, it's Italy. And if you need compromised or specific investigators compromised with the study, as it is a smaller country and things like that, I will go to Portugal. But in any case, you can find quite compromised investigators in the whole 3 countries. You can find quick approvals in the 3 countries, and you can find quite good recruitment rates in all 3. I cannot say which one is the best one because it depends, of course, in the indication of the study.
Okay, Alfonso, that was of course a very smart answer, which moves me also to my last question, which is a kind of standard question for me. Imagine a sponsor would like to get recommendations about your region. Yeah, they really want to start a study with you there. And what would you recommend? What's the most important they should take in mind to start a study?
Well, I know that when a sponsor from outside our region decides to conduct a study, they start to think about the bad reputation we have about our lifestyle or siesta and things like that, and we don't. And of course, I will not deny that we love life and we live life intensively, but working is also part of the life, and we also live it intensively. That means that if you want to conduct a study with professionals and good quality data and things like that, Southern Europe is a quite good region because of the investigators, which most of them are key opinion leaders in their diseases, because of the population. We have 118 million people there, so it's a big population, and because of the research centers and sites and universities which are really prestigious all over the world, and we can do quite good research. So my advice to a sponsor would be to come and visit each region by coming to any of the events that are ongoing in these countries, and you will be able to see the professionalism on one side and also the lifestyle, which is part of our identity.
Thank you very much, Alfonso. That was a very good recommendation. I think for all sponsors who want to run international studies, they first need to accept that we have different cultures, and they really need to love different cultures. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for being here. It was very interesting.
Thank you for your hospitality and for giving me the opportunity to share our region and our knowledge with your audience. So thank you very much.
I hope that also you liked our movie about clinical research in South Europe. Yeah, please follow us. Please leave your questions and comments, and see you the next time again. Bye-bye.
Bye.